So the one thing I knew about the casting of this show was that it needed to not be bland. It needed to not be, it needed to be vibrant, whatever that meant. You know what I mean? And what that meant is when I was writing these characters, I didn't have anybody in mind specifically for them, and I didn't have any one kind of ethnicity or racial background to any of them. Like, I didn't know that Mariner was going to end up being black until I met Tawny Newsome. Like, when we were casting Mariner, we were meeting with Asian actresses and Latinx actresses and black actresses, and I just knew that I really wanted somebody that brought sort of a tone and a personality to it that felt like I would have to write up to them, not that I was writing it, because I'm about as white as they come. You know what I mean? Like, I do not bring that to it. I bring a lot of nerdiness to it. I bring a lot of passion, but I'm a pretty white dude. And when we auditioned Tawny Newsome, within seconds, she set the entire tone for the show. Like, she was the first person that we cast. She was the first person who, when she was rambling about, I said to her in the audition, I was like, hey, will you just ramble about things that you love from Star Trek The Next Generation? Her rambling became the end of the first episode. Nice. Like, that made it into that. And her growing up with and just having TNG be a part of her life growing up, like, and her general kind of like, I mean, she's an amazing actress and she's beyond funny. She's insanely funny, but just the vibrancy and the fun and the confidence and just everything she brings to that role is, Tawny Newsome is that spark that then built the fire into finding Jack Quaid and finding Noelle Wells and finding Eugene Cordero is, again, like a sleeper hit, who plays Rutherford, is so funny. Just every one of these actors, can take something written funny and then they say it and it's so much funnier because of the way they choose to do it. And we try to get out of their way a lot. We try to get like, we do 3 takes and then we have them do a couple takes and we're like, all right, now just change it. Like, what do you want to say here? You know what I mean? And, but I think what your friend is identifying is that Tawny Newsome is a force, Tawny Newsome is one of the most fun and awesome actors I've ever worked with. And, even in cartoon form, that comes like blazing through, and it ricochets across everything, like the tone of joy and of fun that she brought to it, and just her voice and how she speaks. Like, we even, she was on my radar, not even from casting. I'm sure my casting folks would shake their fists at me, but we auditioned Tawny because one of my producers, Brad Winters, is a huge fan of her Yo, Is This Racist podcast, and was like, you should have her read. And she came in and just blew us away. Like, she wasn't even through the usual kind of process. And I'm just really lucky. Like, I'm really, really lucky. I keep being afraid that she's going to become like the next Tom Cruise and like disappear and be a huge superstar, because like her star power, like, gives me a tan whenever I'm around her. She shines so bright. But yeah, I wish I could take credit for that. I think like Tawny as a guiding light really builds out a lot of Mariner. It really edified a lot of, Don Lewis, who plays the captain, again, is like amazing at that role and so singular. And, Don and Tawny together are like truly a joy, like so funny and so combative. And when they get along is even better. And they're not combative in real life. I mean, on screen, like they're best pals in real life. But just having that baseline and trusting and knowing when something is better than I could have done it, like letting go of the controls a little bit, and just like whatever's making Tawny laugh is going to be the funny thing, like letting Tawny improvise in the booth a little bit and making sure it's all there, and then like feeding lines and like playing around with it, So I have to give a lot of credit to Tawny and really the whole cast. Like, it's a really fun, really vibrant cast, like not only just vocally, but just like personality wise, like that's what they feel like in real life. You know, like going out to dinner with those guys feels like you're hanging out with Mariner and Boimler and Tendi and Rutherford. Like it's just really awesome. So I wish I could take credit for that kind of stuff. But I think the only thing I'll take credit for is knowing that if I had tried specifically to be like, I know the best thing to do here, it probably would have felt like a little less exciting. You know, whoever I had cast would have had a harder job, because when we found Tawny, I was like, oh, I had no idea Tawny was out there. She's 100% right. And then let's build off of there. Like being open to that kind of stuff. Like I guess that's part of the fun of making a show, but you know, it's the scary part, because then you also have to listen to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of auditions, and you have to have people be like, maybe you just don't know what you're doing. And you're like, maybe I just haven't heard the right person yet. But yeah, when you find, I mean, both of you guys must know, like when you find that person who it's a synthesis, like it's not just that they're executing a script, but that they're like, there's this kind of like alchemy where you don't,
right.
It could have been done, but this is better than that. It's like kind of breathing life into it. Like when you find somebody like that, you're just so lucky. And that's what this whole cast did, and especially Tawny at the very get-go.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I've often told people from the other side of the table, you know, when you're an actor, you always feel like the other person, you know, the producers or whatever, almost like the enemy. It's like a scary thing. But from the producer's point of view, you're rooting for that. You're saying, please be the person that I'm looking for. You know, everybody that's walking, you're just like, please. And it's just the person that comes out and just brings whatever they are as a person to you. That's the person that is going to send you home to lunch finally, or whatever.
Yeah, it's weird too to have to tell a room full of producers. They're like, "What are you looking for?" And you're like, "I'm looking for somebody funny who sounds super fucking Starfleet." And they're like, "What does that even mean?"
I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it or hear it.
Yeah.
So I know you got to go. You did answer a previous question of mine too, without me having to ask it. So thank you. Which was, it does seem like you stay open to letting the actors improvise certain lines here or there. And it seems like that's what you kind of implied, is that you give your first 3 takes, and then you said you let people kind of improvise something or throw something out that they want to do. And it really shows. It makes it feel extremely natural, and it seems less rigid and scripted and more like you're just watching actual people talking, because I think that that's what this show is going for. Realism. Like, these are real people. They're not these model citizens quite yet. They're just like you and me. And
yeah, they're like us plus, I think. I think I didn't know this when I started, but then it made a lot of sense, is that I wanted to see, like, I think if you're a Star Trek fan, you're probably a good person. Like, people who like Star Trek usually sort of, I mean, you've heard this forever. It's like, this is where people get into the sciences. This is where people find hope. This is where people, you know, get excited about stories about morality and ethics. You know what I mean? And also about friendship. And it got me excited to do a show where the characters in the show are also Star Trek fans, because they're not the bridge crew. And like I was saying about my, in quotes, my journey as a writer, but you know, I only worked places where I was a fan. Like when I was at South Park, you know, when I'm putting printer paper into a printer, I'm not doing that because I love printers. Like, I'm doing that because I love laughing and watching South Park, and I want to be a part of it. And I really think that a lot of that attitude got into Lower Decks, where these characters love Starfleet, and they love the history of the Federation, and they might not love their day-to-day jobs, but they love being a part of the bigger story. They love being a little part of it, just being a part of it at all. And to different extents, like clearly Mariner and Tendi are very different in how they view, you know, their experiences. But I just, you know, I really wanted that aspect of being a Trekkie to get into Star Trek. That felt like, if Deep Space Nine is about, you know, being on a retrofitted Cardassian space station. By the way, so many times I have to tell my artists, guys, don't take design cues from Deep Space Nine. And they're like, why not? You don't like Deep Space? I'm like, I love Deep Space Nine, but it's not Federation shit. Like, and they know that now. They're great. But that wanting to get that feeling into the show felt like this is on a space station. Like if you're going to do a Star Trek with actual Trekkies in it who love what they do, and they might not be the best of the best yet, but they're trying, and it is important to them. At a baseline, they're all the best. They are good people at heart. That aspect of this show is way more important to me than the idea that it's about the lower decks. I mean, there's an episode of TNG called The Lower Decks. That's my favorite. Like that's
one of the
clearly
best ever.
My inspiration for this. You know what I mean? But that being said, well, that's the kind of baseline inspiration of, and there's been other Star Trek episodes, like there's a Voyager Lower Decks type episode, and you could even say that like Jake and Nog are Lower Decks. You know what I mean? Like every Star Trek has kind of looked at that. But for me, it's, if we're gonna do a comedy about Star Trek, let's put 4 characters that if you ran into them at a Star Trek convention, you would just be so pumped to like talk about the Warp Core with them. That's cool to them because that's cool to us. And having a show that says, hey, your fantasy might be getting to serve on the Enterprise, but how about a show where we watch like where that actually gets to happen? Like a fan of Star Trek in Star Trek, and that's what every day when we sit down to write this show, like partially that's why it's so fun. Is because we know the characters love being there. There's nobody that doesn't want to be doing that stuff. And then the stories get to like throw them for a loop and stuff. But yeah, that's really a joy for me.
Really quickly, I know we got to go, but I just want to know really quickly, have you been to a Star Trek convention before?
That was what I was going to ask. I was like, but we're out of time. I shouldn't ask him that.
No, I can answer that.
He does seem like the kind of guy that we would hang out at a Star Trek convention with. And you do feel like one of us so bad, so we'd love to know the answer.
So growing up, my family was not very big on conventions. So I didn't get to go to a convention until I had enough money to pay for me to go to the convention. Part of it was that my mom was just like, did not understand that world at all. And then my dad, he had polio and couldn't walk. So like conventions were not great for him. I know a lot of people would say him personally didn't love being stuck in the middle of a room where he couldn't get around as much, which I totally get. And so my first Star Trek convention was last year to be there. Wow. and to promote and talk about Lower Decks to a room full of people that did not want to hear about a Star Trek cartoon. But I believe by the end of us talking about it, I took some writers with me and they were like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, let's just get up there and tell them that we love this show and that we love Star Trek and it's going to be fun, And I didn't know, like I'd been to Comic-Con many, many times, partially because it's in San Diego and I'd go for work all the time. So it was like such a quick pop down there. But I had no idea what a party Trek Vegas was. That like
awesome.
Panels during the day, fine. Yeah, but then like everybody's just like I cannot wait for us to be able to see people in person again and go and just yell Qapla' and get trashed with Tawny and some Klingons. Like that sounds so fun. I just want to be around people who like Worf and my people. You know what I mean? Like I just like that baseline and just like how inclusive the whole thing is and just how it's just so startling. You think you know what it's going to be like before you go. And it's so not like Comic-Con. Like I had no idea. Comic-Con feels like it's owned by the brands and Star Trek feels like it's owned by the fans. Like
exactly.
It's so cool. And it freaks you out when you first get there where you're like, this could almost just be a fan run event. Like this is so cool. And, I'm so careful with Star Trek stuff at all times because the last thing I want to do is bum somebody out who loves this same thing that I love to like make my job or my life easier. Like, once a decision becomes easy, it's like, well, then maybe we should slow down a little bit. But, I got to relax so much and have such a blast when I went to Star Trek Vegas that then I was like, God, I can't wait to go this year. And of course the world shut down like after my very first taste of it, but I can't wait to go again. And I hope that you guys are going to be there because I just had such a blast. And I know that everybody from Lower Decks wants to go and party with everybody and just be like, yeah, we did it. We tricked them into giving us a Star Trek show. Woo!
Oh, that's
awesome. Sirach, he does totally seem like somebody we'd be hanging out with at Star Trek. You're totally a Star Trek Las Vegas person. It's the greatest place in the you honestly.
I mean, you go, you play some blackjack, you get drunk with a bullion. Like I'm in. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Anyway, Mike McMahan, you've been so great to us. You've been an amazing presence online. You're an amazing presence in sci-fi animated comedies, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thank you for
us.
having me. Thank you guys for the support. Surak, like, I'm geeking out, man. You're part of the best. Like,
keep it up. We're watching you, and we're loving what you're doing, man. So keep it up.
I hope you still only use one iPad at a time for each thing you're working on, just like on Deep Space Nine, because you can't. You can't have more than one book on one iPad.
No,
yeah,
there's no internet.
But yeah, guys, it's been a joy. I clearly, hopefully, I didn't talk too much. I could talk forever about this stuff, and I'm really, you think that I'm vocal online. Like, I love this community. I was a part of it. I mean, I was writing fake episodes of TNG on Twitter back when I was an assistant called TNG Season 8. Like, I was doing this before anybody was paying me for it.
Yeah,
so I feel like I've gotten away with a wonderful trick, and hopefully I'll get to keep doing it.
We got Norwalk, Diamond Bar, Fresno. I mean, what other ship names?
Sacramento. You'll be seeing. Luckily, California has a lot of cities in it. Oh yeah. Oh, the St. Louis Obispo. Beautiful vessel. Beautiful ship. Has a whole dedicated ping pong room. You're gonna love it.
Right before you came on, I was telling Sirach I was shooting yesterday, and he said, "Where was it?" And I said, "Pico Rivera," and he's like, "That's the next ship on Lower
that'll be the
Decks."
next
I was
one.
I don't know about Pico
I
Rivera,
want people
man.
to be able to drive up and down California and be like, ship, not a ship.